Hello students, welcome to a lesson through the virtual training center of the Brihan Mumbai Mahanagar Palika. My name is Shraddha teacher, and in this lockdown period, since we are not able to go to school children, we will be doing many lessons here online through the virtual class. So come on, let's proceed to our lesson for today.
So children, let us start with another lesson in Standard 10th English. And this time we will be doing the third lesson from Unit 3 of your textbook. And the name of the lesson is Stephen Hawking. Now children, in this particular unit, the previous lesson that we talked about was about Einstein, isn't it? He was a great scientist we saw, and how he is called as the unrivaled genius. So all these things we saw. Now in this lesson, we are going to deal with the life of a person called Stephen Hawking, who is also known to have left his mark in the field of science. So he was a physicist, all right. He was a cosmologist, that is, he studied and he propounded many theories about the space and about the life of a human being, about God, and so many other things. He was also a very famous author, so we will learn about the books that he has written. And most important of all, he was an exemplary example of a person who overcame his physical disabilities, and he went on to make a mark for himself. Now, as we do in each lesson in English, we do a little bit of exercises from the warming up part, and then we go on and we do the story, or we do the text in a you can say summarized form, and later on we do some examples or we do some exercises in grammar and vocabulary. So that is how our lesson will go for today. So this video, children, will cover part 1 of the lesson 3.3, that is Stephen Hawking. So come on, let's see what is there in store for us. So in the first part itself, children, you will see that there is an exercise about certain great people who have been part of our history and who also have had some kind of a disability. But what makes them stand apart from other people with disabilities is that they overcame these difficulties. Okay, and they went on to make a name for themselves in this world. So there are so many people. Let us try and see what kind of disabilities or difficulties they had or they faced. So we had John Milton, we are going to talk about Beethoven, and then of course we are talking about Stephen Hawking in this lesson. Walt Disney. Now you all have heard about Walt Disney. Now, Walt Disney was a very, very famous person who created all these cartoon characters. Mickey and Donald, Tom and Jerry, all these were created by Walt Disney. And Albert Einstein, we talked about him in the previous lesson. Thomas Edison, Helen Keller, Sudha Chandran, who is an Indian. Okay, she's a television actress, so there was something bad which happened to her also. Then we have Tanai Gray, Franklin Roosevelt. So let us get some extra knowledge about all these people. In the meanwhile, before going and directly looking at the answers, you can pause the video and you can try and find out the answers yourself. So, come on, let me give you the answers now. So, who's John Milton? So, John Milton was a great English poet who became blind at the age of 43. So, he was 43 years old and he went totally blind. But in spite of that, he continued with the work of writing his poetry. Then we have Beethoven. So Beethoven, also we talked about him, I think, in the last lesson when we talked about the piano. Okay, so Beethoven is a great German composer and musician who became deaf at the age of 28. So you can imagine a person who makes music cannot hear anything. He is deaf. All right. What about Stephen Hawking? We're going to learn about him in detail here. He was a famous scientist who got paralyzed at a very young age, that he was hardly 21 when he developed a disease which made him paralytic gradually. Walt Disney is an American entrepreneur, that is, he is a businessman. He was an animator. He created all these cartoon characters. He was a voice actor and he also had certain learning disabilities. Albert Einstein, we know that he also had a learning disability. He was a dyslexic and he could not speak till he was around 7 years old. Okay. What about Thomas Edison? Thomas Edison was a great inventor who has over 1000 patents, but he had a learning disability and later on he became deaf also. Helen Keller, she was blind and she was deaf. Okay. What about Sudha Chandran? Sudha Chandran was in a bus accident and she had to get her legs amputated, but she was a dancer. So can you imagine dancing without legs? But Sudha Chandran was a dancer whose legs had to be amputated because of an accident. What about Tanay Gray Thompson? He's a wheelchair racer who takes parts in races, but he's still on his wheelchair. What about Franklin Roosevelt? He had polio and he was elected as the President of the United States for 4 terms. So, 4 times he was elected and re elected the President of the United States. So, children, this is how we get an idea of people who have had great disabilities but who have overcome those disabilities and who have made a mark for themselves in this world. So, now there is a one more exercise on word building in your warming up part, but we will take it towards the end of the lesson. Okay, so let's now move on and let's see the main, you can say, points or the main parts of Stephen Hawking's life. So Stephen Hawking, he was born on the 8th of January 1942, and see, this is a picture of Stephen Hawking as a baby, as an infant with his father. Where was he born? He was born in Oxford, England. And he was a British scientist, he was a professor, he was an author who has done some groundbreaking work. Groundbreaking or path breaking means some, you can say, excellent work in physics and cosmology, and whose books have helped to make science accessible to everyone. So science is something, when you open a book and you start reading, and if you don't have a scientific bend of mind, you don't understand things, and then you very soon close the book and keep it aside. But Stephen Hawking has written in such a manner that science has become accessible to everyone. If people, ordinary people like me who have no much idea about science, even if I read a book by Stephen Hawking, I might understand what he wants to say. Okay, so this is about Stephen Hawking. So see here, I'll try and show you various pictures of him. So this is Stephen Hawking as a young boy. So his life was just like the life of any other young boy. So see, in one picture you can see he's all dressed up to go to school, and in the other picture he's gone fishing. All right, so he had an ordinary life like any of us. And see, this is his picture when he's gone to college. All right, and this boy standing here is the hero of our lesson, that is Stephen Hawking. So he went to study at the University of Cambridge, and he was studying there, and he was very interested in physics, and he was interested in cosmology. But as he was studying there, when he was 21 years old, he developed a disease called as the ALS, or it is called as the amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Now, what happens in this disease? Now, see, children, we have learned about neurons and dendrons and muscles and tissues in your science. You're learning it still. So, you know that nerves are very important in order to control our muscles. So, this is how a normal nerve cell and muscle look like. Isn't it? A normal person, they have this kind of a muscle cell or nerve cell in our body. But when a person develops a disease like ALS, see, this is how his muscle and his nerve cell becomes. That is, it starts diminishing, it starts shrinking. And as the muscle starts shrinking, you will see that the person's body also goes on shrinking. Okay, so this is what happens, and suddenly, gradually, not suddenly, gradually, you will see that you are unable to move your muscles. That is, you're unable to move your hands, your legs, you cannot walk. Okay, so some people lose their voice also, like Stephen Hawking had also lost his voice, and then slowly and slowly you become totally paralytic. That is, you cannot do anything with your life normally. So this is also what happened to Stephen Hawking. Now, there are not too many things which we will discuss about his life here, because what you can do is you can open your textbook and you can read the textbook. Okay, so you will be able to understand all that happened with Stephen Hawking's life. Now, his life was made into a movie also in 2014, and the name of the movie was The Theory of Everything. Now, there was this book also which he had written called The Theory of Everything. So, this became a very important, very famous, and a very, you can say, popular movie also. So, during his entire life, he has written a lot of books. Stephen Hawking has written a lot of books. Okay. See, these are all the books which are written by Stephen Hawking. So, totally, he himself or he co wrote, that is, he wrote with someone else, because you know that he had some kind of disability, and this was not allowing him to do his things independently. So, these are some books which are written by Stephen Hawking. So, you have a brief history of time, and then see, he co wrote the book called The Grand Design with Leonard Lodinov. Okay, so these are all some of the books. I'll show you some pictures. See here, Stephen Hawking, The Universe in a Nutshell. So this is one more book that he wrote. All right, and The Theory of Everything, the book which was made into a movie later on. All right, and for more information on Stephen Hawking, I would want you to read the textbook. But remember one more thing, in the year 1985 he lost his voice also. All right, so he was confined to a wheelchair, and he had to depend on others physically. He needed a 24 hours nursing, that is, he needed someone with him 24 hours in order to take care of him. But in spite of all this, he never stopped. He went on continuing with his work. Okay, and then but finally in the year 2012 he passed away, but he was supported and he was loved by his family. So this is also a picture of Stephen Hawking with his family. So you can see in the first picture the disease has not progressed so much, but in the second picture you will see that the disease has almost eaten him away, and he's totally on a wheelchair and totally dependent. And then finally he passed away at the age of 76 on 14th of March 2018. And you can see here the second picture here on the screen is where he was finally laid to rest in a place called Westminster Abbey near London. Okay, so this, children, is the story of Stephen Hawking for you. So usually during a lesson, what we do is we try to just go through, or we try to follow a gist of what happened in Stephen Hawking's life. Okay, and then we will do certain exercises which are part of the lesson. So now, after you finish reading the lesson, you will be able to definitely answer these questions. So come on, let us check whether you can answer these questions. So you're supposed to observe the timeline, and you're supposed to search the occurrences according to it, and you're supposed to fill up this particular chart. So come on, pause the video and get to work and see whether you are able to find out the answers to these. So January 8th, 1942 was the day when Stephen Hawking was born. Then in the year 1969, so he was hardly how many years old? 42 to 52, 62, he was hardly 26, 27 years old. He was forced to use the wheelchair. In 1970, what happened in his life was he was taken to the Hawking graduate students to help manage his care and work. Okay, so his students, the ones who were doing PhD under him, they were the ones who took over the work of managing his care and also his work. In the year 1988, he published his first book. And now we have this, you can say, timeline where they have various years. So let us see what happened in all these years. So in 2001, what happened was he wrote the book The Universe in a Nutshell. In 2005, The Briefer History of Time was written. In 2009, he retired from Cambridge. Okay, he was working as a professor in Cambridge and he retired from there. Then in 2010, you will see that he wrote the book The Grand Design. And in 2014, the life story of Stephen Hawking was depicted in a film. All right, the movie which I showed you right now, it was made and his life was depicted in a film. And then we later saw how on the 14th of March 2018 he passed away. Okay, so this was the life or the story of Stephen Hawking as we read it in this particular lesson. Now, let us make a list of the books which are written by Stephen Hawking. Now, this I will not do it for you because we just saw so many instances where I told you the names of the books. Okay, so what you're supposed to do is read the textbook once again, read the lesson once again, and write down the names of the books which he wrote and what all topics he covered in this book also. And you can also write in short what were his contributions to the world. After this, let us make a list of Hawking's inabilities, physical inabilities after 1963. Okay, 1961, his disability started when he was 21 years old. He started getting problems, and by the time he was in the year 1969, he was totally on the wheelchair. So, what all disabilities happened and what all problems were there with his physique? We're supposed to write here. So, come on, let's see whether your answers are matching with mine. So he was diagnosed with the ALS syndrome. Okay, we discussed what that disease is called. Then after that, it is called as the amyotrophic lateral sclerosis syndrome. Okay, it is a disease which affects your nervous system. After that, you will see, children, he lost physical control over his body. That is, it diminished slowly and slowly. He lost the physical control which he had over his body. After that, it progressed and he had to make use of the wheelchair. He could no longer walk and move around on his own. Later, you will see his speech became slurred. That is, he could not speak properly because now the disease was starting to affect his vocal cords and the muscles around his mouth as well. After that, you see, he lost his voice. He couldn't speak at all. And finally, he got a chest infection. After that, he could not he could not become okay to the normal level. All right, he was already suffering from so many problems, but after his chest infection, he did not bounce back, and his there was a lot of problem with his chest muscles also, and slowly he became gravely ill, and then it was discovered later that he passed away. So this is the story of Stephen Hawking's physical disabilities or physical inabilities which started developing when he was 21 years old. Now there is one more exercise, children, in your textbook where you have to fill up this particular map. Okay, so there is a network diagram here and you are supposed to fill up the names of the personalities related to the various fields that they have given here. So you have the field of fine art, you have the field of mathematics, science and literature. Okay, so think what are the personalities, who were the famous personalities in the field of fine art, and then in the field of mathematics, in the field of science and literature. And then come back and check the answers that I'm giving you. So fine art, you have people like Leonardo da Vinci, okay, Rabindranath Tagore, and Michelangelo. So they painted, all right, they wrote books, so fine arts. What about mathematics? So can you think and name of the names of certain famous mathematicians? So you have Pythagoras and Archimedes and Euclid. Okay, so these were some of the mathematicians, and we have been learning about Archimedes' principles and Pythagoras' theorem, etc. What about science? So names of scientists. Come on, let's see whether we're able to come up with the names of some famous scientists. So you have Pasteur, Einstein, and Newton. All right. What about literature? In the world of literature, we have Shakespeare, we have Dickens, Charles Dickens, and John Milton. Okay, now for some extra knowledge, you can always surf the net. That is, you can go on to Google and search about these people. That is, what were their exact contributions to the field of fine art or to the field of mathematics or to the field of science. You can search. This will be for your extra knowledge. Okay, now we go to another, you can say, web diagram. Let us now try and highlight Stephen Hawking's achievement. All right. So we will start with the fact that the nerves which controlled his muscles, they stopped working. So this is how it started. Okay, when he was 61, he was exceptionally, when he was 21, he was exceptionally brilliant as far as cosmology went on, and as far as physics was concerned. He had a lot of knowledge, and he had a lot of thirst for knowledge also. But the nerves which controlled his muscles, they stopped working. And then let us see what were his achievements. He wrote 15 books. Despite this condition, he wrote 15 books. He authored numerous scientific papers. The books were like A Brief History of Time. This is one of the books. He discovered about black holes in the year 1974. Now, black holes are certain phenomena which happens in space. Okay. So these were his contributions, some of his achievements. We cannot put down all of his achievements on this particular page. So these were some of his achievements. So children, these are some main points about the life and the achievements of Stephen Hawking. So remember, why are we focusing on his achievements so much? Because all these achievements are in spite of the kind of disability that he was suffering from in his real life. Okay. Now we do this particular exercise in grammar, and then we will wind up the lesson for today. We will go to the next part of the lesson in part 2 of the video. So here you're supposed to fill in the proper form of the verb as per the subject. Now you know that verbs, they change as per the subject. Okay, if the subject is first person singular, or depending on the type of the subject, the verb form changes. So here let us look at some examples. So mother dash a good meal. Okay, so this is mother. She's alone. We're talking about another person, a mother. Mother. So will you say cook a good meal or cooks a good meal? So mother cooks a good meal. So that is singular. Mother is singular here. Okay, she's just one person, mother. So we say she cooks a meal. But look at the next example. Mother and her daughter. So there are two people now. When there was one person, we say cooks. When there are more than one persons, we say cooks. So here the answer will be mother and her daughter, cook a good meal. So one person, you say cooks. More than one person, you say cook. Okay. So likewise, try and find out the answers to all the other examples also, and then come back and check with mine. So the rise and fall of the empire dash recorded in history. The rise and fall of the empire is recorded in history. Okay. Now the next one is neither Ritesh nor Alok dash well. So remember here there are two people now here, Ritesh nor Alok. So plays well. Either of the two is guilty. Everyone makes mistakes. That news dash published today. That news is published today. 8 lakh rupees dash a big amount. 8 lakh rupees was a big amount. The committee dash approved of it. The committee has approved of it. The cost of all the goods dash risen. The cost of all the goods have risen. Okay. So this is the first part of your lesson, children, today. Let us do the next.
So children, wasn't that a wonderful video? And did you enjoy watching it? So if you want to watch more such videos in future, then please like this video and also subscribe to our channel, the MCGM Portal for Education, and also hit the bell button so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video here. Thank you so much for now. Let's meet again soon.